Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I just want to review a game from the 2011 Chinese Chess Championship. It's a very brief game, but despite that, it contains a great deal of good characteristics, in my opinion. It has a great deal of depth to it. It's very creative. There's unexpected moves involved. We get to see a queen sacrifice, and to top it all off, a nice finish, one of those very appealing windmill type of checkmates. So let's see exactly how white is able to accomplish all of this in just 31 moves. So white opens up with d4, knight f6, c4, e6. We quickly enter this nimzo-indian defense indicated by this bishop b4 move, and white gets right to the point, puts an immediate question to the bishop, and is okay with this current pawn structure now. So these doubled pawns tend to be the one downside from this, but on the other hand, again, white now has the bishop pair. So moving forward, we have c5, which is very typical, a very typical way to approach this pawn structure, striking in the center, allowing the queen to come out along this diagonal, and really just not allowing this c4 or c3 pawn to now advance. So white continues with e3, allows this bishop, the light square bishop, to come out, and now b6 allows this bishop to, you may think, to come to this long light square diagonal, but in this white pawn structure, this bishop will often find it better to be placed on a6, where it puts pressure on the sensitive point c4. So bishop d3, taking aim at the white queen side, or excuse me, the black king side, or what's going to likely be the black castled king side position. You might, this is one position here where you really can't just go with these general rules of thumb like, oh, develop knights before the bishops. If you do that, okay, knight f3, well, there's drawbacks with that sort of move, and I'll touch on that in a short time from now. So first we actually just have bishop d3. Let's get this bishop on the diagonal we know it's going to function best on. And now knight c6, and now knight to e2. So the knight is going to find it better to be on e2 in this sort of setup, because you do want to reserve the option for this f pawn to advance. As we will see in this game, it does happen. So bishop a6, again focusing on this c4 point, and now e4, advancing in the center allows this dark square bishop to come out. Black castles, bishop g5. This is an annoying pin, especially when black does not have a dark square bishop. It's difficult to cope with this pin that the knight is currently in. And so black goes about it in the following way. h6 kicks the bishop back to h4, and now g5 kicks it back to g3. So black did one thing, it got out of the pin, but unfortunately now there's serious weaknesses in the black position. So let's see exactly how white exploits this. d6, why d6? Well, the bishop is maybe getting ready to go to d6 and be very deep in the black position. It would be a very annoying piece to kind of get rid of, and it just really clogs up the black position. So that's what's prompting d6 by black. And now f4, just creating pawn exchanges, trying to create more lines, more avenues towards the black kingside position. And now knight to a5, focusing on this weak point c4 seems very logical. However, white is able to come up with some really creative stuff. So capturing first on g5, we now have white ignoring the pressure on this c4 pawn and just castles instead. Really, I mean, if you try to hang on to this pawn after, let's say, I don't know, maybe a move like queen to e8, threatening the queen exchange. If the queens are exchanged in this position, I think it would start to favor the black side, because this really starts to become a liability, and with the queens off the board, there's really you really start to no longer have too much more of an attack against the black king, or either king for that matter. So if we were to see queen exchange at this point, the knight can recapture, conveniently guard d6, which the bishop still has pressure on, and now it seems like this pawn is just going to be falling. So really, you just kind of have to abandon this idea of trying to hang on to this c4 pawn and just go forth with some sort of an attack against the black king. So white castles, and now knight to h5 seems like a good move, just trying to eliminate this bishop And this right here is one of those unexpected type of moves. Bishop takes d6. Is this a blunder or not? Actually, when I first just quickly reviewed this with the computer, the analysis showed up like negative 1.8, which is indicating that black is doing better. But in just a few more moves, we start to see that the tables turn, and it's actually white who's now the better side. So it's hard to, blame black for maybe going for this. It's just white really came up with some really, really creative stuff. So let's see how white did it. e5 does what? Hits the queen, allows the bishop to come out, and creates a pivot point for this white rook on f6. Queen e7, and now knight g3. What is this doing exactly? You may think it's, okay, we're just getting ready to capture the knight, but its main purpose is just to have this sort of clearance. It's one of those clearance type of moves. It allows the queen to come out along this diagonal. In fact, after knight takes knight, the knee-jerk reaction is to just capture the knight, but no. White doesn't do that. Rook f6. What does this move do exactly? Well, let's just see first what would occur if we just do the routine recapture type of move. We now have to cope with f5, and all of a sudden things become that much more difficult to carry on with, because or it becomes more difficult for white to attack, I should say, because now the black queen is able to guard the 7th rank, and this rook can always bump itself up to f6 and do similar. And in summary, the attack is that much more difficult to again carry on with. But by not capturing the knight right away and first playing to f6, you prevent black from advancing that pawn. And there's still, unfortunately, no time for this knight to really save itself. For example, if knight f6, the queen jets out to h5, and it's just downhill for black at this point. I mean, what exactly to do? The knight can't move, really. I mean, you go here, it's going to be mate. So the knight is really just stuck exactly where it is. The queen's getting ready to just take here with check, etc. And after queen h5, if we just saw this rook coming either b8 or c8, just getting ready to just put their running shoes on, go to f8, e8, etc., we could just chop this knight, and it's just really downhill. I mean, after the recapture, rook h6, and unfortunately there's not going to be any convenient defense at this point. Mate is right around the corner, starting with the moves like rook h8, followed by queen to h6. So unfortunately, what it's coming down to is in this position, after rook f6, there's no time to really save this knight. It just kind of has to sit there. So in the meantime, black recognizes this, plays king g7, allowing this rook to contribute by way of h8 or g8. And now queen g4, getting ready for this mate in 2. Capture, followed by rook h6. So rook g8 allows a little flight square for the king on f8. And only now do we capture on g3. So first we wanted to plug up the black position with this rook f6 move, and only then, a few moves later, do we go ahead and capture on g3. So let's see how black proceeds at this point. Knight to b7. Clearly black is having to abandon this plan of capturing on this c4 square. If for example in this position the bishop were to capture on c4 after a move like queen to h5, there's just too many threats that white has against black at this point. Namely, we have mate coming around the corner at by the queen going to h6, and additional pressure is being placed on this pawn on f7. So that's this right here is not going to work. So what black decides to do is reroute this knight to this d8 square to add a defender to f7. So we have knight b7, finally getting the last of the white pieces involved, focusing their sights on f7, and now knight to d8. You'll note that while the knight does one thing, defends on f7, it also, its drawback, I should say, is that there's now a disconnection between the rooks. This rook is now unprotected, and as is often the case in chess, I've said it before, unprotected pieces leads to tactics. So it makes sense to make a move like queen to e4, multiple things going on. What are the multiple things? It hits the rook, it allows the queen to maybe come to h7. So we have queen to b7 as the reaction that black follows up with queen b7, and now after d5 and rook to h8, we have a really nice finish. If you'd like to, pause the video, see if you can find the continuation for white in this position. Okay, the follow-up, how the game proceeds at this point, is queen to g6, giving check, and this queen could just clearly be captured by the pawn, but let me just show one quick what if. If king to f8, unfortunately black is in a position where white at this point can really just pick their favorite variation to go ahead and win. Here's one of them. Just take on e6, and before you know it, pieces are most certainly going to be crashing through at this lonely f-pawn. So instead, as occurred in the game, the queen gets captured, rook takes pawn check, king to h7 check, or king h7 is the only move. Rook takes pawn, discover check, king h6, rook g6 check, king h7, another discover check, rook g4, king h6, rook f6 check, king to h5 the only move, and after rook to h4 black ends up resigning because mate is coming up in just one move. If king g5, then we have simply rook to g6, and that would be mate. Just one other interesting alternative that black could have had at this point, the other alternative that black could have had at this point coming up is after rook g6, if the king were to have played to, let's say, this h5 advance, there's a nice little finish that's quite rare, and that is to make this cute little king to h2 move where there's no defense against the following mate, which is to say both of these pawns will move back to back, and there's nothing that black can do to prevent checkmate. For example, if just, let's say, the queen captures on this square, it doesn't matter. We advance our g pawns back to back, and this turns out to be checkmate. Absolutely nothing that black can do. However, in this particular game, how it ends up finishing is from this position after rook to h4, black ends up resigning. So that's all for this video. I hope you got something out of it. Take care.